But the driver that won the race, again, I guess probably not much of a surprise either, Ross Chastain. Now, he's doing this for Nice Motorsports, of course, who he raced for a championship with in this series 5 years ago. But Brandon, I think a constant criticism that we hear in response to the people that don't like Kyle Busch and Cup drivers running in the series is the idea that you only don't like it when it's Kyle Busch. If Chase Elliott does it or if a Ross Chastain does it, they're full-time Cup drivers too. And we don't hear as loud of a voice in opposition to that. In your opinion, seeing Ross Chastain, and he, admittedly was pretty emotional getting this win at Darlington. It's a historic track. He had a win arguably taken away from him here in the Xfinity Series when he was running that Ganassi car. But is this win in your mind as bothersome to you as Kyle Busch's have been, not just this season, but the last several seasons?
I get kind of subjective whenever I see a guy like Ross Chastain scream as loud as he did to win at Darlington. See how much that means to him. That I'm sorry, that puts him in a different category for me than Kyle Busch, who would get out of the car and just go, "Yeah, truck was great. It's fun. I'll have to do it again sometime." That's how he would get out. It would not be like screaming on comms. But Ross Chastain, yeah, like you said, he had that win taken away from him, and here he comes with Nice Motorsports, and a guy that's had plenty of success already in the Cup Series, and is a relatively short time there, especially with Trackhouse, to be able to come down and get a win and be that excited. I can't help but say, yeah, it's pretty different than if someone like Kyle Busch or one of these other Cup vets would go down there and win.
I'm all for consistency, and Ross Chastain's a guy that, 2 years ago now made the championship 4 in the Cup Series. So I feel like he's at that point now where he probably doesn't need to be running these races. I do see what you're saying about it being a little bit different. This isn't the all-time series leader, but it's been doing this, longer than Ross Chastain's been racing in NASCAR, of course. But, again, I wish that he could do this in a Cup car. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, the emotions of winning at Darlington, I get that it's a big deal regardless, but, I still feel like, again, I try to be consistent on this issue. I don't care who it is. Even John Hunter Nemechek being in the Xfinity races, still bothers me a little bit. And again, I understand that his situation is much more different than, what you have with Kyle Busch or even with Ross Chastain here. But it's just the principle of a full-time Cup Series driver running one of these two series, taking wins and or points away from, a guy like Nick Sanchez or a guy like Ben Rhodes, who just made that crew chief change, is trying to get his season turned around again. It's something that, impacts the outcome of the season, because those are, playoff points and race wins that are going to waste here for the championship. So, it doesn't matter who the Cup driver is, or even the Xfinity driver, I guess. I wish that, it would be Cup or Xfinity / trucks because of the situation that Ross found himself in 2019. Him having to basically start over after he declared for Xfinity to start the year, I thought, was pretty unnecessary as well. But, again, I struggle to reconcile that, because I get what you're saying about it, being a big deal to Ross and meaning more to him than it would for Kyle Busch. But I can't get over the fact that it is still a full-time Cup Series driver going into this series and taking a win away from the series regular.
Yeah, I do share that every time. Almost every time I see a Cup winner in Xfinity or trucks. But I'm not saying that Ross is struggling in the Cup Series, but when you see him do so well, let's see a driver do so well in the lower series, and they are not, top of the top in the Cup. It kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, do you need to be down? Is this where you belong? Like, but it varies from track to track, week to week. So you can't. That's not really a fair assessment of a driver, because where they go is pretty ever changing from week to week anyway.
Yeah, and again, we've had this discussion a number of times on this show, and I certainly understand both sides of it, and I get people are saying, it's not an exact science or the exact same situation here as it is with Kyle Busch. I'm just trying to be consistent.